So good morning, and thank you for being with us. As there are so many of new faces amongst us, we thought it would be a good idea to start with a high-level but comprehensive overview of how medicines are evaluated here and what are the core tasks that we carry out here at the agency. So in terms of the European system, we have what we call the centralised procedure, which is what we do here at the agency. But just also there are a couple of other ways in terms of European systems that we have the mutual recognition. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just so you have an understanding, this is where if a company has authorized a medicine in one country, they can apply to other member states for what we call mutual recognition of this authorization. There is also decentralized procedure, and this is when pharmaceutical companies can apply simultaneously in several countries to apply for authorization. Now, this only applies to certain medicines, and I'm going to go a bit more into detail into that afterwards. But that was just to give you an overview of where we place the centralized procedure is the European-wide one-stop procedure. Now, I've actually stolen an excerpt from our training video on the SAGs, which gives a very nice illustration of basically the centralized procedure. So we're just going to show you this now.
Our core task is to evaluate applications from pharmaceutical companies who are applying for a license to sell a new medicine. Together with experts from across Europe, the EMA assesses whether the medicines are safe and effective enough for use. Based on the EMA's recommendations, the European Commission then may grant an authorization which would be valid throughout all EU member states. Once authorized, the EMA monitors these medicines to ensure they remain safe over time and once they are being used.
So a very short excerpt, but we thought this was a nice illustration which just shows the way that it kind of works. So the centralized procedure means one application from a pharmaceutical company for a marketing authorization. There is one evaluation which can lead, if positive, to one authorization which is then valid throughout the whole of Europe. This also means there is one invented name and one set of product information, the summary of product characteristics, the labeling on the box, and the package leaflet which is found inside the packaging. And this is translated equally in all the EU languages. So in addition to the evaluation of these marketing authorization applications for human and veterinary medicines at the agency, it doesn't stop there. The agency is also responsible for the coordination of what we call pharmacovigilance, which is the safety monitoring of the medicines once they are actually on the market and once they're used. Going back even before that, before the applications come here, companies can apply to the agency for what we call scientific advice. And this is where we can advise them on the development plans, for example, the way they're going to carry out the clinical trials. They also come here if they would like to have what we call orphan designation. And this is where a product can be designated as for a rare disease. And this means there are certain benefits if it receives the designation. Also now there is law that companies should carry out investigations for medicines in children. And they also have to come to the agency if there are reasons that they would not carry out these investigations, for example, if the medicine is not suitable for children. So the agency would give them a waiver. We also do arbitration and referral procedures. I won't go too much into that, but this is where there are perhaps disagreements between member states or with national procedures. They can then come to the agency for arbitration, for an agreement which would then be harmonized across Europe. We also do the inspections in terms of good manufacturing practice, good clinical practice, and good laboratory practice. And of course, we can't do all this without ensuring that all of the outcomes and the information is transparent and properly presented to the outside world. So we have to ensure that we have good quality, independent information available on all that we do. So a little bit more detail. As I mentioned earlier, there are only certain medicines that can go to different procedures apart from the centralized. Here is what we call the mandatory scope. So all of these areas, these medicines, these diseases have to come to the EMA for an application to license their medicine. And you can see that along the bottom, this is progressively enlarged. Now, companies do have the option, even if they would like to license a medicine that was not in the mandatory scope, there is what we call the optional scope. So, for example, if they meet certain criteria, if it's a new active substance, or if there is a significant therapeutic, scientific, or technical innovation, or that if it's found to be at the interest of public health. But as I said, there are certain criteria that have to be met in order for them to be able to come to the agency to apply for a license. I won't go into too much detail here either, but I did want to just explain that there, apart from the normal type of approval where you will have full comprehensive data on the medicine, there are another couple of ways. For example, we have exceptional circumstances, and these can be an approval for rare medicines where perhaps there is not enough data available because it's rare, there is not many patients to have a look at the data in. Again, they will have to meet certain criteria. And we also have conditional approval, and this is perhaps where initially there is not as much information as we would like, but it's an unmet need, for example, so there will be conditions which mean that studies have to be carried out continually after it's on the market, and then they will be re-evaluated. So we don't work in isolation, of course. We work across a whole European network. We have quite a few committees that work with us, and all of these committees are represented, have representation from across Europe. So we have the CHMP, the Committee for Human Medicinal Products, the Pediatric Committee, the PDCO, the Committee for Herbal Medicinal Products, the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, the Committee for Advanced Therapies, for Orphan Medicinal Products, and for Veterinary Medicines. And so we work across all member states, and we also have access to over 4,500 individual European experts that work with us, obviously depending on the different areas. The CHMP is the committee that is actually giving its recommendation, or what we call its opinion, on the approval for the medicines. And this is just an illustration you can see of all the member states represented, and the current chairperson is Dr. Thomas Salmonson. For each procedure in the committee, there is selected one rapporteur and one co-rapporteur, and they assess the dossiers back with their assessment team back in the national authorities, and then obviously this is shared across the whole committee throughout the procedure. It's a bit of a busy slide, but I just wanted to show you that in addition to the committees, we also have other groups and working parties that also help. We have some, on the outer circle, we have some of the permanent working parties. For example, the Scientific Advice Working Party, the Quality Working Party, Safety, Biologics. Of course, we have the Patients and Consumers Working Party and the Healthcare Professionals Working Party. On the left, you can see the circle. This is other working parties that are perhaps not permanent, but they are created depending on need at the time. And in the center, we have what we call our scientific advisory groups, and these are core SAGs, and these are groups of experts in the specific areas that the CHMP can call upon, or the PRAC, can call upon whenever needed, when they have an evaluation ongoing and they really want some specific questions answered by the best experts from across Europe, so they'll convene one of these meetings to discuss the issues. We'll hear more about that a bit later as well. You can also see up here in the right-hand corner we have the CMDH. This is the coordination group for the mutual recognition and decentralized procedures I mentioned earlier. We have the Inspectors Working Group, the GCP. We also have here the QRD. Again, sorry for all the acronyms, but this is the working group on the quality review of documents. And this is the group, again, from across Europe that is looking at the product information, so the SPC labeling and package leaflet of each of the medicines. So what is the product life cycle? So here you can see it's set into three specific areas. We have pre-submission, we have the evaluation phase, and then we have the post-authorization phase. You can see here, obviously, quite a lot goes on even before it comes to us for an application. And I've shown as well underneath some of the committees and groups that are involved in the different areas, but we will go into those again. And here you can see where we have patient input in the scientific advice, which is in the pre-submission and also in the evaluation and in post-authorization. A little bit more detail in terms of the evaluation. So at the beginning, companies will submit their application, their dossier full of all the data that is necessary. This also includes their first draft of the product information and the risk management plan. Once it's been evaluated to ensure that all the documents are as they should be, then the procedure starts, and this is what we call day 1. At day 80 is when we have the first assessment report, and this is where the rapporteur and the co-rapporteur each prepare an assessment report. They will also prepare a list of questions which is sent to the company, which is what we call a day 120 list of questions. Here also we can have a clock stop, because I think also so you can know there is a limit in terms of time for an evaluation. So there should not be more than 210 days before the CHMP gives its opinion. Now, when there is a list of questions sent to the company, this clock can stop, which allows enough time for the applicant then to gather the information and respond to the questions that have been posed to them. Once the responses have been submitted, we have what we call a day 150 joint assessment report. And thereafter, we can have, again, if there are still outstanding issues, we can have some more questions which are sent to the company, another clock stop, and then the procedure starts again. And as I said, by day 210, there will be an opinion issued. This opinion is then sent to the European Commission, who will issue a Commission decision at day 277, and at this point, the company can then market and sell their medicine. Of course, it is up to them to ensure that the product information which has been agreed is translated correctly in all the different languages. So throughout this whole procedure, all the teams are assessing the benefit and risks of the medicine. They're assessing the risk management plan, what is being put in place for managing any risks post-authorization. They are looking, is there the need for any post-safety or efficacy studies? They will assess the product information throughout the whole procedure, and also they prepare what we call a risk management plan summary, which outlines what are the risk management plans in place. Do stop me if anybody has any questions. Okay. So in terms of post-authorization, so once the product has been authorized and it's on the market, it also comes back to the agency many times. It can be that the company is requesting to have a change to their authorization, or there should be a change due to a safety issue, or it could just be that there is it's time for its renewal at 5 years. So obviously when they submit, they would submit again revised product information. We will be looking at whether there are signal detections. Do we need to reevaluate the benefit risk? We'll be assessing the update safety reports. Again, deciding is there a need for any further studies? Does the product information need to be updated? Have any changes resulted in changes that need to be shown in these? And does the risk management plan need to be updated? And here at the bottom, we're just showing some of the procedures that incorporate these changes post-authorization. A little bit more about what we mentioned, pharmacovigilance, which is the safety.
I have a question, sorry.
Yes, of course.
Hi, I'm Alex from Alzheimer Europe in Luxembourg. You just mentioned that it's a 5-year authorization. Is that standard for all medicines?
Yes, that's a standard for all authorization, unless the product is authorized under conditional circumstances or exceptional circumstances, in which case we look at them on a yearly basis until they fulfill all the conditions which have been put in the authorization.
Okay, what happens after the 5 years in the case that it is a standard medicine? It starts again?
Well, after the 5 years, it will depend what is the outcome of the assessment. The committee could decide that the product has been saved throughout the 5 years, and the risk management plan went well, and there's no specific issue identified, and in that case, the renewal is definitive. If not, if the committee considers that there are still issues that we need to look at, then it goes for another renewal.
Thank you.
And in any case, if anything happens, even after the 5 years, the product will be referred to us for further evaluation. It's not the end of it. Yeah.
So a little bit more on what we call pharmacovigilance, so the safety monitoring post-authorization. So obviously, when a product is authorized, it's based on a certain amount of data that was obtained through a specific clinical trials for a certain time period and a certain amount of people. Obviously, this is going to change. There'll be a lot more information once the product is on the market, that it is used over long periods of time and by a lot more people. At the agency, the pharmacovigilance is assessed by our Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee, the PRAC, and they assess the aspects of risk management. Again, European representation, and the current chair is Dr. June Rain from the MHRA in the UK. So how does data collection and management work? I mean, for an example, a patient has an adverse reaction or a side effect. They can either directly report themselves or their healthcare professional report on their behalf. They create what we call an ADR report. This is then submitted either to the marketing authorization holder, so the pharmaceutical company, or to the national competent authority, so the local authority in that country. All the reports then are sent to the EUDR-Vigilance database, and this is the European repository for all adverse reactions. So this data in this database is obviously then very closely monitored by the EMA for the centralised procedures and by the national agencies for their authorizations. What happens? So they're looking for any signals. They're looking, is there a higher level of unexpected reactions in one particular medicine that's not already in the SPC, or maybe not the frequency that was expected? This will then be discussed with the EU assessors. They'll go to the marketing authorization holder, perhaps ask them for some additional data. They will assess, is there a need to do something? Is this really a signal that needs looking at? They'll involve other member states, and then if there is an issue, they will go to the PRAC, so the Risk Assessment Committee, who will discuss the issues. We will go to the CHMP, and then together they will decide whether or not remedial action is necessary, whether there needs to be perhaps restrictions to the indication or how the medicine is used, or even in some cases, does it need to be withdrawn from the market? So this is just to give you an overview of the post-authorization monitoring. And I think I'm going to stop here. I've just put some acronyms as well, because even though we tried to keep away from them, there were some throughout the slides. Yes?